There are 3 hacks that I've learned over the past 6 months that have totally changed how I prototype in Figma. And in this video, I'm going to reveal them so that you too can create prototypes in Figma like a pro. Now, these are techniques that I use almost daily, and most designers that I work with don't know them. So let's go through each so you can speed up and simplify your workflow. My name is Zell, and I've been a professional product designer for over 5 years, and these are some of the best Figma prototyping and variable tips that I've learned over the past year. And make sure that you stick around for tip number 3 because it's going to instantly speed up your workflow. For this first tip, I want you to ask yourself, are my components and variants truly optimized for prototyping? If you're unsure, you're really not alone here, because this is a common challenge that I see among the designers that I work with. Recently, I was showing a coworker a better way to build a conditional form. Realistically, this is a scenario you'll often run into as a product designer, and one way to build this would be to create variants for each form state similar to what my coworker was doing. But this approach is not reusable and is a one-off solution. I'm not going to use this same conditional form elsewhere, so it ideally shouldn't be a part of my UI kit. To solve this, what we're going to be doing is using variables to create the conditional within a single frame. So let's start by creating a checkbox component as the trigger for the conditional and a variant for the selected state. Now, this next step is crucial, so make sure to pay attention. We'll need to name the property differentiating the variance as a Boolean, so true/false. Next, we'll take an instance of our component and we'll drag it into our form. From here, we'll create a new Boolean variable. To associate the variable with our property, we'll need to give it the same name as our checkbox property, so selected. Link this variable to the checkbox instance in our form, and after doing so, the last step is to select the element you want to show within the conditional and link its fill to the Boolean property. Now, if we go into prototype mode, we'll be able to see that when the checkbox is selected, the conditional appears, and if it's not selected, it doesn't appear. And all this is done in a single frame. Now, while that first tip was useful, there's a common issue that people often point out with it, and that's you can't have a hover variant because it will break the Boolean that's tied to the instance state. So for this second tip, I'll be showing you how to solve this problem, which will enable you to build more complex components and continue to simplify your UI kit. So let's start by creating a frame to serve as the background for our component. This is how we're going to add the hover effect. We'll turn this frame itself into a component and create a variant for the hover state. Next, we'll link the variants with our prototyping handles. So we'll start with the default state and we'll create an expression. If the user's mouse enters the default state, it will change to the hover state. Afterwards, we'll create another expression for the hover variant. When the mouse leaves, it will change back to the default state. Now that we've completed creating the overlay, we'll be able to add it to our design element to complete the hover effect. In this example, I'll be adding the overlay to my navigation component's links. So I'll go back to my tab component, which I created using the same method as tip number 1 in this video. Now, this next step is really crucial, so make sure you pay attention, because this is going to ensure that your design is responsive. So when adding the overlay to the tab component, what we'll need to do is bound it left, right, as well as top and bottom. And this is going to allow the background overlay to adjust with the tab's size as it changes. So now if we go into prototype mode, you'll see that we have the show hide effect from the tab as well as the hover state, all within the same component, all within one navigation component. Okay, now, so before we move into tip number 3, don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this content helpful. It means a lot and really will help this channel grow, so I do appreciate it. Okay, we're on to tip number 3 now, which is a prototyping method that I use daily to quickly create prototypes on a single artboard using variables. So let me start by giving you a scenario. Let's say you're designing a page with a call to action that opens up an overlay and a modal. There are 3 common ways that I've seen people prototype this, and the third one being the best as well as the least used. So the first method would be to create 2 artboards, each representing a page state. The downside with this is that you'll have 2 pages to maintain, which can become quite cumbersome with complex prototypes. I've even run into situations where it impacts my file's performance. So it's definitely not the most ideal way to do it. The second method would be to use an overlay expression to trigger the modal and the overlay. Now this is nice for animation as it allows you to move in, move out, do whatever you want. But again, it can get messy and easily break within large files as multiple people are moving things around and prototypes are being updated. Now the third, and what I think is the best method, would be to use a Boolean variable to control the modal and the overlay visibility. We'll create a Boolean variable named showModal, and from here we'll create an expression on the modal's cancel button to hide the content. Next, we'll link the elements to the variable to hide them. And lastly, from here to complete the prototype, we'll create an expression on the button to set show modal to true on click. So now if we go into prototype mode, we'll be able to see that everything works as intended on a single artboard. If I click the call to action, the modal and overlay will appear. And that's the last tip. So if you found this video useful, a like and subscribe would always help a ton. If you have any better ways to prototype, I'd love to hear them as well, so please let me know in the comments. Look out for the next video, and I'll see you next time.